Today we're going to start looking at square root functions and all. So we're looking at, let's start with our topic says I can graph square root functions. Before we talk about that, we're going to first talk about our parts of a radical and how things work here. We have our index. The index here is the number of the root that we're taking. The ones we're going to be looking at today are going to be square roots, so it's a 2. There won't be a number necessarily in there. If there's not one, it's understood to be 2. This is our radical symbol, the little house looking thing over it with the check mark looking thing in front of it. That's a radical. The number on the inside is what we call our radicand, and the whole thing here is a radical. So looking here, our parent function for a square root function is x, the square root of x. So we treat this like it's y equals the square root of x. So if I was to make a table, put me some x's and some y's here, I'm going to start off with 0. I'm not going to start with negative numbers because that will then put me in the realm of imaginary numbers, and we're not graphing imaginary numbers. We're only dealing in the real world right now. So I start with 0. The next one I would use would be 4 because 4 is a perfect square, and then I would use 9. The square root, so what this means, I'm going to say y is equal to the square root of 0, which would be 0. Then I would say y equals the square root of 4, which would be 2. Y equals the square root of 9, which would be 3. So now that I have these points here, I can go and graph them. So 0, 0. Then I have 4, 2. And then I have 9, 3 would be about right here. So my graph looks like this right here, going up and keeps going. So the domain for this one would look like, it starts at 0 and it goes to infinity. My range, it would be the same for this particular one. Start at 0 and go to infinity. And now here it says my origin. The origin, what they're talking about here is, what is the starting point? Where does our graph start? Well, this one right here starts at the origin actually. So it starts at 0, 0. And that one's a point where our graph begins. Looking at another example here where things change a little bit, this is y equals the square root of x minus 2. So if I put anything other than 2 or larger in there, if I put say a 1 in there, I would have the square root of a negative number. And again, we're not doing imaginary numbers at this point, so we are not graphing imaginaries. So when I make my table here, my x and y table, my first point would be 2 because that would give me 0. My next point would be 6 because 6 minus 2 would be 4, and I know that one goes here. So my graph would look like 2, 0, 6, 2, and it would look just like the other one, except this time my origin or my starting point would be at 2, 0. My domain would be from 2 to infinity, and the range would be from 0 to infinity. Okay, here, looking at this one, so if I say, hey, this is y equals the square root of x, notice the plus 2. The plus 2 is outside of the radical. So that's going to move our graph up and down. Anything on the outside moves it up and down, inside moves it left and right. So on the outside it's going to move up 2 places. So if I made my little table here, I would still have, for my x and y, my x I would have 0, 4, and 9. And this would give me 2. And this would be, square root of 4 would be 2 plus 2 would be 4. And this would be 3 plus 2, which would be 5. So I would start my graph here at 0, 2. Then I would go to 4, 5. 4, 4, 4, 4. And then I would go to 9, 5. Like so. So it looks just like the parent function, except it's moved up 2 places. My domain goes from 0 to infinity. The range would go then from 2 to infinity. And my origin, or the starting point of the graph, would be at 0, 2. And the same thing with this last one right here. It's exactly the same, except for instead of moving up, it's going to move down 4 places. So the starting point would be down here at -4. Then over here at 4, it would be at -2. And then at 9, would be at -1, like so. The domain would be from 0 to infinity. The range from -4 to infinity. And the origin or starting point of the graph would be at 0, -4. Graphing square root functions. Enjoy.